Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, beautiful soul. It's Anna T. Brooks here. How are you? How are you? And welcome to the three sneaky signs of people pleasing that are keeping you small. Let me try that again. Three sneaky signs of people pleasing that are keeping you small. There we go. Got it. It's a mouthful. So say hello when you're jumping on. I'm just going to take a quick minute and share this across so that anyone who wants to jump on live is able to. So if you're jumping on now, say hello. If you're catching it on the replay as well, make sure you say hey. All right. Awesome. All right, cool. Shared that over. So let's get into this. So this was a little bit impromptu. I didn't really plan too far ahead in advance for this live stream or for this little mini series, but I thought it was something really important on the back of the You Matter Masterclass that I ran a couple of months ago. It's been almost a couple of months ago now. And this is just sort of a bit of a follow-up and also an area that I see a lot of questions around and a lot of misunderstandings. And so specifically, the reason that I titled this as the three sneaky signs of people pleasing that are keeping you small is because this really is specifically geared and targeted towards those of you who, much like me, and this is what I've gone through, which is why I now speak to it, is gone through a phase where we have been in charge, in control, and very disciplined with our life choices to a certain degree throughout a lot of our lives, right? And especially when it comes to people pleasing, this is something that's really going to make a lot of sense if you're the kind of person who normally thinks, I don't people please. If you were to ask anyone about me, that wouldn't be one of the traits that they would think of when they first think of me, right? They would, in fact, they would say a whole lot of other stuff, but I'm just not the kind of person that does people please. I don't just say yes to things for the sake of things. I don't just, all the obvious stuff, saying yes when really you want to say no, over promising yourself to doing things and always being so busy doing everybody else's things that you don't have time for yourself. All of these really kind of somewhat obvious traits of people pleasing are probably things that aren't so predominant in you. And this is exactly what I wanted to talk about today, because these are really sneaky ways that this happens to those of us who otherwise might have thought we don't even people please, we don't have any traits. And this is something that I believed about myself for a very long time, that honestly, I'm not like that. I don't care what other people think. It doesn't matter to me. I will do what I want. And that is all true. However, these three things that I'm going to be speaking about over the course of 3 days are areas that I didn't really come into understanding until much further on. And when I was able to see these areas and actually start shifting them, it made an enormous difference in my life. And also, with my clients now that I teach as well and that I take through this process, it made a huge difference in terms of how I show up, in terms of the energetic frequency that I put out, and therefore the results that I get in life, the way that my relationships evolve, the way that new relationships and new partnerships evolve, everything, right? So that's a little bit of a backstory, I guess, I wanted to start before I get into. So today is day one, right? There's going to be 3 of these videos. The first, and each day I'm going to cover one of those signs. So this first day today, I wanted to start with a bit of that kind of backstory, or that context, if you will, of what this is about, who this is for, and how this can be helpful to you. So this is especially for you if you believe that, you know what, I don't people please, and I don't think there is anything about me that actually is about people pleasing, or I don't think it's something that is very predominant in me at all. In fact, I would say I'm the opposite. This is going to be for you, because this is exactly where the sneaky things come in. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's get into the first one that we want to talk about today. Like I said, there will be 3 of these. So over the next 3 days, not consecutively, I think the next one I'll do will be Friday, and then the last one will be next week. but there will be a 3-part series of these. So if you're watching on the replay, whatever you're watching, you can definitely catch up on it. But yes, say hello if you're jumping on. I think I have got my other phone with me. Where are we? Hey Jody, hey lovely, hello. Yes, I have, as always, got my second phone with me because I know from experience that Facebook won't show me comments until way later. So instead, I'm on top of that. So perfect timing to jump on, perfect timing. So the first thing I want to talk about today, and these are going to be relatively short for this reason because I've decided to split them up, get them sort of bite-sized so you can kind of watch them, get on with it, implement it, come back to me, let me know how you're going, okay? So this first one, the first sneaky sign of people pleasing that's keeping you small is actually believing or being overly independent. Now, this is a big thing that, especially if you've grown up in society in the last 10, 20, 30 years, it has been a big proponent of the way that we are brought up, especially for females. It's definitely shifting now, but it's going to take time, right? But the way that I've grown up, the way that many people have grown up, there was a very big push of being the independent woman, right? You can do it all yourself. You don't need a man. You can have the career, you can have the children, you can have the family, you can have the success, you can have the lifestyle, you can have everything on your own. You don't need to be supported by anybody else. You are perfectly capable. And whilst all of this is true, right, it's not taking away from the fact that yes, we are capable of everything. That is the whole point. Being in that environment and being pushed to these levels, especially because it was really pushing, especially females, into a very masculine world, into a very overly masculinized world. In doing this, it meant that we were actually going against our natural instincts, our natural ways of being. And more importantly, when you get into a space of being overly independent and you really start to see your self-worth and your self-worth, how valuable you are as a human based on how independent and strong you are, and you start to wear that as like a badge of honor of, that having that sort of that thing to tell about yourself and to be proud of yourself, to be like, I'm really independent, I'm a strong and independent woman. Starting to take that on more and more and more and more, what this actually does is it creates a space where you cannot receive support because you are literally, by the very definition of what you're doing, repelling it. And the funny thing is, this is why it's so sneaky, is that we think this is the opposite of people pleasing. We think, actually, you know what? I am so independent. I am so strong. I don't do anything for anybody else. I am here for me. I am going to make it happen. I am powerful. I can do it. We don't even see that correlating in any way to people pleasing. When actually what is going on when we're doing this is that we are basically in fear of what other people will think of us. And the thing that we are worried that they will think of us is that we are weak, right? The last thing we would want as a strong and independent woman is for others to think that we are weak, that we need help, that we somehow need a savior, we need our knight in shining armor, or whatever it happens to be, right? We don't want to be seen as weak. And the flip side of that is to be overly independent, overly strong, overly self-sufficient, right? When we get into that space more and more and more, what ends up happening is we block any and all support that we can receive, because everyone who comes into contact with us, our energy, our demeanor, our actions, our speech, everything about us screams, I'm independent, I'm strong, I don't need anybody else, I can do this, I've got this, I'm in control. And what that screams then is, I'm not accepting of any support, I'm not accepting of anything else. And we do this because of this fear, this underlying fear that's most of the time it's subconscious, hence why we're not aware it's going on. But what is underlying under all of that is that fear of being seen as weak. Because again, the way that we've been brought up, the way that we've had role models, the way that we've been taught, what is a valuable trait to have is to be independent and strong, as opposed to needy and weak. Don't want to be seen as that, right? And that is exactly what we start to correlate with not with being overly independent is that, well, now nobody can call me weak, nobody can call me needy because I don't need anyone, I don't need anything, I've got this, I can handle it, right? And the problem long term that happens with this is that everything does end up having to be on you. You don't get the support. You don't get the partner who wants to help you. You don't get the strangers in the street who want to help you. You don't get any support from your co-workers or in your business. You don't get to attract the right sort of support when you're building your business, whatever it happens to be. It just doesn't come to you because your energy and everything about you literally repels it. For me personally, this showed up very powerfully for me in my early 20s when, especially in the relationships that I found myself in, and one particular one that I was kind of in and out of for quite some time. And whilst I was internally incredibly attached to this person and really, really did want and need them, I felt like the only way that I could actually show that I was worthy and that I was actually a worthy person to be with, because this person had so many different games that they played, it forced me to step into that overly independent role so that I could show that, you know what, I don't need you. Because as you know, when you're playing games, when you're much younger and people, or even older, right? People do this all the time. But especially when you're younger, you play a lot of games in relationships because you don't know how to communicate effectively. And so in order to get these needs met, and a lot of them are unconscious, subconscious needs that we haven't articulated even to ourselves, in order to get these needs met, the only way we know how is to play games. And a lot of that time for me was spent playing the role of the overly independent, strong woman, girl, right, at the time, still growing, to get the attention of this person who seemed to only want me when I didn't want them, right? That sort of dynamic. And so the problem with that, like I said, is that this is exactly the pattern that you're setting yourself up for. You can't then change that dynamic. That relationship doesn't then get to grow, and you don't get to then become where the both of you actually want to be invested in this relationship, and you actually have a level of value and respect for each other, and you get to communicate effectively, and you get to feel really, really loved and reciprocated. It doesn't ever evolve into that because the dynamic is already set of, I'm overly independent, I don't need anyone, I don't need you, and they find that attractive because it's that hard to get mentality, right? The very immature hard to get mentality. And that doesn't change unless obviously one of the individuals at least decides to change their energy and their demeanor and their actions moving forward. Then obviously that will change the dynamic in some way. But most of the time, because that's how it's set up and both people are unconsciously doing this, that is never going to shift. And what it leads to for me, or what it led to for me anyway, is years and years of feeling like, why am I not lovable? Why am I not good enough? Why am I not worthy? What is wrong with me that I can't have someone just want to be with me without me having to justify, why this is happening, and without me having to prove myself all the time? Why was I never enough? And this was years and years and years of this kind of programming that I set myself up for by staying in this in and out relationship and in this dynamic. And ultimately, that impacts very much my entire energy. It impacts how I come across. It impacts my decisions. It impacts how others receive me. Everything in my life got to scale out of that. And this is why I say this is so sneaky, because the whole time that this was happening, nobody else would pick up on it. Everybody else would just pride me on how independent, how strong, how resourceful, how powerful I was. Everybody else in my life only saw that. Nobody could see and nobody could put together that actually this was all a front, because I was so scared of being seen as needy or weak. And especially when it came to relationships, that I would be the one who was never needy, never weak, because then that way I could show how independent I was. And like I said, this is that double-edged sword where it's like, I was showing these things to try and present myself a certain way, when actually the end result was that I was getting the exact opposite of what I wanted. All I wanted was for someone to actually love me for me, to make me feel worthy, to make me feel like I am actually worthy just as I am, that I don't have to prove myself. But the problem was the way that I was acting, the way that I was going about it. I was literally programming everyone around me to treat me the opposite, to make it that I do have to prove myself constantly, that I do have to always show how independent I am, that I do have to show how strong I am, that I do have to always be performing in order to get that, right? So I have no one, this is why I say this is really, really important, that this is something you get to take self-responsibility for, because whilst obviously other people were involved and other people and the way they treated me was also involved, this is all on me. I partook in this dynamic. I chose to keep going with it. I chose to feed into it. I chose to alter my personality and my demeanor, my energy, everything in order to be part of that dynamic. I'm not saying that other people weren't there to influence me and that there weren't other circumstances, of course. But at the end of the day, this was my responsibility that I decided to step into. This was a dynamic that I chose to continue, right? Consciously or subconsciously, or not consciously, it doesn't really matter. The point is I was a willing participant, right? And on the other side of this, years and years and years later now, to look back and go, okay, I see now how I was setting up those patterns, how I was setting up those relationships, how I was setting up those dynamics. And I can see now that it was coming from a place of really, really people pleasing, of not wanting to be seen as needy or weak so that other people would be happy with me, so that other people would think I'm amazing, so that other people would be pleased with me, right? People pleasing. And not actually from a place of wanting to be so strong and independent. That was, there was parts of my life that it's like that was a cool byproduct, but that wasn't the actual reason. That wasn't the actual goal. The actual goal was trying to hide, trying to avoid being hurt by being seen as needy or weak. So I'd love to know if that's making sense. I haven't looked at my comments for a little bit. Jody, guilty. Guilty. Yes, exactly. You know what that's like. So this is where I wanted to start, because this is, I think, the biggest one that I see time and time again, because of the way that, especially that we've all been brought up, that I see coming up again and again, and it keeps getting missed. It keeps getting missed as a sign of people pleasing, because there's so much rah-rah, so much energy, so much attention and accolades and awards that come with being the strong, independent woman, that it can just keep getting brushed under the rug, or just keep getting ignored, or keep just not even being seen for what it is for a ridiculously long time. And like I said, ultimately, the one who suffers is you. The one who suffered in this situation was me, because all I was doing was perpetuating that same cycle over and over and over, being terrified that somebody would ever see me as needy or weak, because that would be like the worst thing in the world, right? And instead spending all of this time, all of this energy wanting to just please others, wanting to make sure that everybody else thought that I was strong, that I was independent, that I was capable, that nobody would ever mistake me for someone who's weak or needy. And in spending so much time and energy worried about what other people will think of me, which is literally what people pleasing is, or what other people will think of me or say to me or treat me like, I actually set myself up to be spoken to and treated and have experiences exactly the opposite of what I wanted. I could have been, instead actually standing my ground and being truly strong and independent by allowing myself to be myself and actually stand up for the love that I deserve, instead of settling for less. But instead, because of the fear of what someone else might think and wanting to perform for them and be that right person for them, instead I played up to this character that ultimately just gave me the exact opposite of what I was trying to get. And that's why it is so insidious, right? It's sneaky because you don't see it coming. It's insidious because it's easy to fall into this pattern and to keep running it and replaying it over and over and not even realize what you're doing. And, for me, I did not realize what this was until years after I was out of it, like years, literally. It took a lot. I was, other things happened that led me away from that I had some other growth in other areas, but it wasn't until literally years later that I looked back and I was able to see those patterns and go, holy shit, that was exactly what was going on there. And my hope is that, if this is resonating and if this is something that you're able to see in yourself or see in some patterns or see in some relationships now, or even just recently, that you can start to unravel that you can start to, or even if it's a past relationship, you can start to heal that. You can start to actually identify what it was so that you can move forward. A lot of the time, we do need to actually see something for what it is so that we can actually deal with it. It's kind of like trying to, there's some traumas, there's some things that we go through that we can just let go of without ever having to really address it. That's fine. But then there's other things where it really helps to actually be able to see it clearly and go, okay, I get what that was. And now I feel like I can release it because now I can understand it, right? Sometimes we do need to be able to understand what happened in order to let it go. And then other times in our life, we just need to let it go, right? There's lots of different things. But I think when it comes to this is something that it really helps to actually understand what's happened here. I feel like that helps a lot. So let me know how that lands. Let me know if this is making sense. If you have any questions about this as well, please feel free to pop it in, whether you're watching live or the replay, because I will check back to see any other comments or anyone else who's been watching on the replay. So let me know, and that way I can, pop back, answer any questions. I can even, if there's something bigger to elaborate on, I can definitely do that in the follow-up live streams that we'll have. So like I said, this is day 1 of 3. So there will be 3 part mini series on this. This is day 1. We've still got 2 more sneaky signs of people pleasing that are keeping you small to come. So the next one will be coming up in a couple of days. On Friday, I'll let you know exactly what time. Again, if you want to jump on live, I'll put up a post shortly. And then the next one will be next week. So you've got a couple of days. You've got a couple of days to kind of sit on it, let it sink in, have a feel through it, see if any questions come up, anything you want to kind of riff off, please feel free. But yes, I think that's it. I'll just double check any other comments coming through. No, I think we're good. Awesome. Beautiful. All right. Well, like I said, I wanted to keep this reasonably short and sweet, so I will leave it there. I look forward to seeing you on Friday for the second day. And beautiful. I will see you soon. Mwah.